Hi, it's the day after Thanksgiving. It's Dwyer on November 29th, 2024. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. BettingAngle.us, a free site. Let's talk boxing. Let's respond to some comments left here earlier regarding the big fight, the rematch between heavyweight champion Alexander Usyk and challenger Tyson Fury. But first, remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, in an earlier video, I made the point that Fury needs to go for the knockout in the rematch, right? He himself, by the way, in interviews, has said he's going to go for the knockout. Now, let me ask a basic question here, and I know many of you feel that the idea of knocking out Usyk is preposterous, right? Understood. But let's just talk it through. Why doesn't Tyson Fury have any credibility with the boxing public when he talks about seeking a knockout? Isn't that what he did before the rematch against Deontay Wilder? At the time, wasn't Wilder just like Usyk, a guy who hadn't been stopped? Right? Let's remember the first fight, Wilder knocks down Fury 2 times. Well, in that rematch, and it's very important, you notice that Fury has long power. In other words, he not only has a reach advantage over most in the heavyweight division, certainly over Usyk, but he's a guy who can measure you from distance and then drop you with straight punches. Let me also point out, too, that in the first fight, and I admit, by the way, that the second fight's too close to call. In the Fury-Usyk rematch, it's too close to call. But the odds are skewed. So when you have an evenly matched event but skewed odds, the betting side of the play is with the underdog. What I want people to realize, too, is that in that second fight against Wilder, he drops Wilder off of a body shot. Right? He's already shown an ability to drop a fighter off a body shot. He's also shown the ability, in my opinion, to land body punches on Usyk. Isn't that a weakness in Usyk's defense? Didn't Daniel Dubois knock him down off of a body shot? Let's also talk about a few other things, right? And I understand Usyk has gotten stoppages against notable opposition, right? He stops Daniel Dubois in the heavyweight division. Okay, I acknowledge that. I thought he could have stopped Anthony Joshua in the first fight. He had Joshua in severe difficulty. I'm not saying that Usyk is chopped liver. What I am saying is, a Tyson Fury could dare Usyk to be in the pocket. Folks, I know they've already fought 12 rounds, but it's going to take Usyk some time to get back in the pocket. Let me also say, too, that I hear you clearly. There's a group of you, and it's sizable, and this is just part of the sport of boxing, who saw the first half of that Fury-Usyk match and who believe that Usyk was winning the fight. There's a group of you who can't understand the scoring of the first fight because to you it's clear that Usyk always had the upper hand. Right now, let me just say, when you have such a wide variance of opinions on a fight, when after the fight you have the Ray Leonard crowd and then you have the Marvin Hagler crowd, Right after a fight, you have the Beterbiev crowd, and then you have the Bivol crowd. Just understand, in my opinion, if we're all watching different fights, if there's a sizable group that saw different action than others who watched the same fight in real time, then that favors the underdog. In other words, if there's scoring variance and it's all plausible, if there's a group that feels, Bernard Hopkins is among them, in other words, you have some Hall of Fame opinions here. If there's a group that feels that Beterbiev, for example, was the aggressor, the group that expected, watching the fight, Beterbiev to win a unanimous decision, right? If that group exists alongside a group that saw Bivol moving in and out, blocking shots, countering, frustrating Beterbiev, then to me in a rematch, the betting side of the play would be with the underdog, wouldn't it? Particularly if that underdog is only being given a 40% chance of winning. Right? That's 40-60. Understand, the favorite is giving a 1.5 times better chance of winning the rematch in a plus 150 scenario than the underdog. Now here, in an earlier video, I pointed out that a sports book in the UK, it's VBet, at the time I made that video, was offering better than 2-1 on the Tyson Fury side of the play in the rematch. Right? Some of you pointed out that the highest odds you saw at MGM were better than a plus 150. In other words, folks, Tyson Fury is being given a 40% or less chance of winning this fight. If there's a difference of opinion on the first 6 rounds, if there's a group out there that believes, as I do, that Tyson Fury is winning the fight at the start of the 7th round, that Fury, as I put it in an earlier video, his plane had left the airport. In other words, he had faced Usyk and he had solved Usyk. There is a coordination gap here. Usyk's faster. Usyk's more coordinated. Usyk's the better athlete. Usyk's going to get to spots before Tyson Fury. But there are other gaps here. Right? Fury has the reach advantage. Understand what we saw in the Bakole-Jared Anderson fight. We saw a big man make a calculated decision to get hit in the body by his opponent. The idea was that the opponent was going to fall for the trap, start coming into the pocket to hit the big man in the body. And of course, in that Bakole-Jared Anderson fight, Bakole made Anderson pay for coming in the pocket, landing uppercuts. What is to stop former Bakole sparring partner Tyson Fury from using the same tactics here? Can't Fury go for long power, measure Usyk just like he measured Deontay Wilder in the rematch? Why can't he stick a hand out, keep Usyk outside, dare Usyk to come inside? As I mentioned in an earlier video, Usyk is too straight right hand heavy in that first fight. Right? What's to prevent Fury from saying, okay, I'm going to guard against the straight right hand if he wants to throw, straight left hand, Usyk's a southpaw. If he wants to throw hooks, I'll invite the exchange. As long as it's not hooks up top, I'll leave my body open because I want a shootout with a smaller opponent who was on the canvas against Daniel Dubois who did not knock down Anthony Joshua over 24 rounds, who's not a knockout puncher in the heavyweight division. So yes, I do feel that Tyson Fury goes for the stoppage here. I think Fury wants an accelerated fight. I think it's a strategy he has to consider, given that, let's face it, not only is Usyk the better athlete than him, but Usyk has the vastly superior stamina. Right? So I understand many of you are saying, come on, who can knock out Usyk? Right? With a few adjustments. And granted, some of them are high risk. Right? Letting Usyk hit you to the body. Encouraging a shootout against a faster-handed fighter who's a southpaw. Right? There are calculated risk involved, but understand, with a different strategy. If Tyson Fury lands some of the shots that he landed on Deontay Wilder in that rematch, Fury has a chance to stop him. Right? Let's ask another question. You've seen Derek Chisora against Joe Joyce, a guy with a punch who stopped Joe Parker. Let's remember that fight. Let's remember Joyce when he was the mandatory. Right? You've seen Derek Chisora in with countless guys, including Usyk. Have you ever seen Derek Chisora as beaten up, and I mean ever, as he was in that last fight against Tyson Fury? Folks, Fury's hitting him with power shots. If Fury could wear down a cagey vet who usually is not hurt, didn't Chisora go the distance against Vitaly Klitschko? If Fury can wear down that boxing spirit, why do you think Fury doesn't have enough to wear down Alexander Usyk in a rematch? Let's shift gears. And please feel free to disagree with me. I know many of you already do, as to who was winning the first fight at the end of 6 rounds. Now, there's an offer out there for Shakur Stevenson to fight Floyd Schofield. Right now, folks, let me just put this diplomatically. Schofield, ambidextrous, tough, has a great jab, knows how to fight low, is world class, has a lot of good things going on in his life. Right? But what I'd like to know is, given that Schofield is something like 22 years old, what exactly is in it for Shakur Stevenson other than the payday? Right? Sure. You know, it's professional prize fighting. The prize always matters. But if you're Stevenson, why would you take this fight? Right? My point to you is you don't. If Stevenson, who's doubted right now by the public, let's get outside the public press, right? You have people in the press corps, people I respect, I don't mean to diss anybody, like Timothy Bradley, who keep telling you that Stevenson is the next big thing in boxing. Right, folks? There's a group that doesn't believe it. Boxing fans. Right? Most of you don't even believe that Stevenson is the best at 135 pounds, his weight class. Right? I see Stevenson has spectacular defense, but he doesn't have the mindset of a Chris Bird, a guy who at one point beat Vitaly Klitschko. Right? He doesn't have the mindset of leveraging that defense against people in a higher weight class. I personally don't think a fight between Stevenson and Teofimo Lopez, a champ at 140, right, a long reigning champ at 140, would be competitive. I think Stevenson wins that fight easily. I think when you're a Stevenson and your game is to move away from an opponent, to defense an opponent, to land some crisp counters, but not to stop an opponent, then you need to be in the ring with aggressive opponents who are going to create the fight. If you're in the ring with stylists, the fight's going to be too boring, especially if the stylist is your size and you're viewed as the Goliath in the fight. So let me get this straight. Stevenson, who the boxing cognoscente feels is an elite fighter, right? Olympic silver medalist. Stevenson's hanging around 135. I know he wanted to fight Loma even when they were at the same shop, Top Rank. That fight wasn't made, right? That fight hasn't happened. Loma is old enough where, like Canelo, he can pick and choose. So the problem is, if Stevenson fights Schofield, who's lesser known but who's talented, if a competitive fight breaks out, even if Stevenson is awarded the decision, right, we're going to look at Stevenson as having lost to a guy who doesn't have as high profile, a younger guy who might not be fully ready for prime time, right? Schofield, truth be known, has defensive lapses. Schofield, when he gets hit hard in fights, still stays around the pocket. He looks like he's still trying to figure out his survival skills. Let's face it too, Stevenson would be the favorite against Floyd Schofield. The public doesn't know Floyd enough, right? If Stevenson loses that fight, we're going to question everything we know about Stevenson. So if I'm Stevenson, I need bigger names, right? If I'm unsure of whether I can handle myself at 140, and keep in mind, you know, guys Stevenson has sparred with, Devin Haney, for crying out loud, is at 140, right? If I'm Stevenson, there's a fighter out there, and it'd be a fascinating fight. It's the kind of fight where Stevenson could look good in, if he is as good as we think he is. You have Jose Ramirez, who just lost a fight. The thing I like about Ramirez is he's on his front foot. He comes looking for you. You don't watch a Ramirez fight and ask yourself the question of when the action's going to start. You're not looking at your watch thinking, wow, we're in round 6 and not a lot of punches have been landed. No, that's not a Jose Ramirez fight. Ramirez is going to come looking for you, and he's not easily discouraged. He's fought a lot of slick fighters in his life. So he would come looking for Shakur Stevenson. Folks, that's a world-class fight. First off, Jose Ramirez is an unknown. He's a former champion. Right? Second, there is the school of thought that Ramirez, who just lost a close decision, has lost a step. If you believe that, then Stevenson, who already is one of the fastest-handed fighters in the sport, would have a decided hand speed advantage. There's a chance that a Stevenson-Jose Ramirez fight might look like Ali-Sonny Liston. Right? The fast guy with fast, quick twitch reflexes. The defensive genius who can lean backwards. Right? Just being too coordinated. For the slugger guy who can hurt you if he finds you, but will he find you? That's an intriguing fight. But Stevenson seems to be committed to 135. He wants to stand in line to fight Gervonta Davis. Folks, how long is that line? Doesn't everyone at 135 want to fight Davis, who's a cash cow? Right? Ryan Garcia came down to 135. Well, that's not true. 136. They catch weighted us in that fight. And who did he fight? Gervonta Davis. Right? Davis has been around to the point where 147-pound champion Mario Barrios has fought Gervonta Davis. Right? Stevenson's career has too much waiting. He's waiting to fight Lomachenko. He's waiting to fight Gervonta Davis. Right? Meanwhile, I notice, Navarrete is fighting Valdez a second time. Devin Haney, justifiably, after his opponent cheated, that's the word to use when the opponent has Osterin in their system. Right? Devin Haney has taken some time off from boxing, but even he has had bigger fights than Shakur Stevenson, right? Because he fought Regis Prograis. That was before fighting Ryan Garcia. And of course, Devin Haney has fought others, right? Jorge Linares, for example, who also fought Jack Catterall, right? Catterall, of course, also fought Regis Prograis. If all these fights are taking place around you, and you're supposed to be one of the biggest talents in the sport, you need to find a way to get in on some of that action. But let me just say, I do agree with Stevenson here. The Floyd Schoenfeld fight doesn't have enough sparkle, doesn't do enough for Stevenson to take. If he wins the fight, he beat a younger guy who wasn't quite ready. If he loses the fight, we're going to question everything we know about Shakur Stevenson. Right? I do hope that Stevenson figures out that he needs to be nimble. Fighters in earlier generations did. Right? Henry Armstrong's jumping around weight classes. Has 3 belts at a time when we only had 8 belts in all of boxing. Right? Chris Bird was actually a middleweight. He jumped up to heavyweight. Was highly competitive. Right? If you're a defensive wizard type guy who's too fast, and if the old guard doesn't want to fight you, right? If Lomachenko doesn't want to fight you, player, take the hint. He doesn't want to fight you. Right? If you find yourself standing in too long a line to get a shot at Gervonta Davis, to the point where Davis is fighting a guy who was a decorated amateur, but who no one knows. Davis isn't even going for the big payday. Then you need to be creative. Right, folks? You have a lot of guys, not just Jose Ramirez, but you have Regis Prograis. Right? Another guy who there's a feeling out there that Prograis is slowing down. I think Prograis himself talked about leaving the sport. If I'm Shakur Stevenson, I say, no, I need that name on my resume. This is exactly the kind of guy who I want to fight. A guy who is going to come looking for me. Has a big punch. Many people are going to believe he might be able to find me. It'll give me a chance to showcase my defensive skills. Make him miss. Make him pay. What doesn't work is when we're sitting around waiting, and the problem is some of these fights start to get stale. Stevenson was all lined up to fight William Zepeda. Then, of course, we see Zepeda on the canvas against Tevin Farmer. Right? Understand how much that's taken off of the fastball of Stevenson fighting Zepeda. Now if Stevenson drops Zepeda, we're going to be thinking to ourselves, oh, he dropped Zepeda just like Farmer dropped Zepeda. Right? Is this about Stevenson's greatness, or is this about Zepeda perhaps having a little bit too much air in his reputation? Right? So to these fighters who are sitting around, not fighting, I understand there's a group of you who can't get fights, right? You know, I respect that. I understand that. Right? Here we know some boxing history. We understand Archie Moore wanted to be in a championship fight for years and had to accept $800 to fight Joey Maxim, who was making $100,000 for that fight. Right? We understand boxing history. We know Joe Louis had to give away a portion of his future purses to get a chance at the heavyweight title. But then you also have these other fighters, right, where we're hearing about the reputation, but we never see the guy in the ring. Then when we see the guy in the ring, it's against some opponent who we haven't exactly heard of, and that opponent's going the distance. That's where Shakur Stevenson finds himself right now, right? I see Stevenson in pictures with Ali Sheikh. I hope I'm not mispronouncing his name. I see Stevenson in photos with Eddie Hearn. Right now we need to actually see Stevenson in the ring with Teofimo Lopez, right? With Jack Catterall, with Paro, with Richardson Hitchens, right? Let's see him in the ring with some world-class fighters. If they're not stepping up at 135, don't blame the world. You need to take control of your career and say, okay, well, if no one at 135 is going to fight me, then I'm going to move up to 140. Let me also make a point here. Riyadh season. I understand they're demanding big fights. We'll talk about this fight in a separate video, but they've demanded that 147-pound champion Jaron Ennis fight 154-pounder Virgil Ortiz. Right now, truth be told, both guys are coming off disappointing fights. But let's be clear here. You saw another champ at 147, Mario Barrios, get tested by Abel Ramos to the point where Barrios kept his title with a draw. Right? Tie goes to the champion in terms of keeping titles. But let's just say that's not reassuring. You understood that the real champ at 147 is Jaron Ennis. But you know that if Ennis gains the weight to fight Virgil Ortiz at 154, his career at 147 is over. Folks, 147 is wide open right now. Right? If you're a fighter, you're highly skilled, and you feel you can credibly fight at 147, now is the time to make your move. Right? Just food for thought. 147, a division that not that long ago was loaded to the point where we had Ennis, we had Crawford, we had Spence, and all three of them were unbeaten. Right? Well, this is how sports operates. Here we are just a year and a half, 2 years later, and that division looks empty. Right? Abel Ramos is looking around. He's in his 30s. And he's thinking, hey, man, why can't this brother bring home a title? I just got a draw with Mario Barrios. Who in this division is going to stop me? Now that Ennis has left. Pay close attention to that Ennis-Virgil Ortiz situation, folks. It's an eye-opener. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.